Hello and welcome to Insight TV. I'm your host, Helen Kerrison. I'm the founder of Insight in Business and an expert on performance leadership. Performance leadership, my passion is about sharing with people how they can have the high performance conscious lives they really deserve and desire when they know how. So on Insight TV, we'll be sharing thoughts and ideas, we'll be sharing experiences, insights, and we'll really be going inside in order to see the outside, and vice versa sometimes as well. So the theme of this series of broadcasts, we're in the series where it's about the energetic connection. And this week, with my special guest, we're going to be exploring embracing uncertainty. Okay, so now before I introduce you to her, I'd like to share 3 concepts with you. And they are as follows. So the first one is, happiness comes from connecting with your inner self. Okay, and the second one is, you're responsible for your happiness. And you decide how happy you want to be. Okay, and the third one is, when you have passion and purpose, everything is possible. So, on to my special guests. Melissa Rancourt is a TEDx speaker. She's a business owner and she's an entrepreneur. She's also the head of faculty at the Boston University of Brussels, managing director for Greenlight Project Management, and the founder of an international NGO. She is also much, much more, which you're going to find out over the next 45 minutes or so. So Melissa is American. She's based here in Brussels, Belgium. And I just want to welcome you to the show, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Helen.
It's absolutely wonderful to have you here and sharing all this stuff, because we met briefly a couple of months ago and just sort of talked. And I think even then, we talked a little bit about uncertainty and what it means for us and how actually it seems to be, uncomfortable as it is sometimes, a conduit to growth. And so when I knew you were going to be coming on the show, I thought, okay, we have to talk about uncertainty.
It's a great topic. It's a great word. I know it puts a lot of fear into people, but I don't know. I just think it's the opportunity for the unknown in front of us. Absolutely,
and this is really what was my first question to you is, what is your take on uncertainty and how have you experienced it?
Well, it's interesting. I didn't know that about myself until recently. I don't know how recently it was, to realize that I actually need and search for uncertainty in my life. Definitely not every day. I think that would be difficult to get through the day, but certainly at different moments. And what's interesting about that is I find that in creating, being part of change, especially in a business environment, it's actually uncertainty that creates the most chaos and the most unsettled feelings, and a lot of times the most emotion, not necessarily positive emotion. Because it's scary, not knowing what tomorrow brings. But I find that in our lives, whether we create it or the opportunity presents itself, whether it's desired or not, uncertainty does come forward, whether we plan it or not. But I find for myself, I've actually, when I looked back in my life, I actually searched out uncertainty, and I didn't realize it. It may come from a certain background that I have. I grew up moving around a lot. I was part of a military family. So perhaps that was something that just created a character aspect of me that I didn't know or come to realize until I became older. But in thinking back, when I left home, I chose a university in another state. So I went from Washington, D.C. to New York City, to New York State. Didn't even visit the campus beforehand. Had an intuition feeling of this was the place I need to go, and left and went. And that's not an unusual story. There are a lot of students, I think, that do that, though most actually do visit the campus beforehand. I didn't do that. I visited every other campus, it seems like, in the US. Didn't actually visit the one that I went to. But when thinking about those key moments, because it is, choosing education and the path in life is a key moment in life, I actually enjoyed the aspect of not knowing. I was fearful, I was anxious, I was all the other emotions that go with it, but there was a feeling that I didn't recognize at that time that I chose that path. No one chose that for me, I chose that. And I think part of that was choosing the uncertainty that we put in front of us. And I've done that a number of times now, now that I realize it, over the course of my life since then.
That's really interesting. So, just thinking actually, I think I've probably done similar things. I did actually visit the university campus before I went to my university. But also, I think it's to do with the idea of change as well.
Yeah.
We can embrace change, we can embrace uncertainty to a certain extent, and vice versa. And having the ability, or even the feeling comfortable with change and uncertainty, is something that can just be so. I think it's so liberating.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it means that there's actually none of those things that will hold you back. There may be other things that will hold you back.
Right.
But it won't be this fear of change and fear of the insecurity that can so often come from not being certain about the future. But when we think about it, there's nothing certain.
No, there isn't. And we go through much change through our lives, whether it's small. It's sometimes it's the bigger change or bigger decisions in life that make it obvious when you're going through that moment of uncertainty. Sometimes we don't realize we're going through it until later on when we reflect upon it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have found personally that having gone through some major life moments of uncertainty and change, that when I went through a recent one a couple of years ago, before starting all the companies that I have, I actually created that purposely. So I tried to actually enjoy that moment versus before enjoying, and uncertainty didn't necessarily go hand in hand. And actually at that time, being consciously in that moment and consciously driving that change and trying to enjoy that moment of not knowing what tomorrow would bring, I actually welcomed, without knowing it, a lot of conversation from people I either knew or that were complete strangers to me, from people offering ideas of what they've gone through or sharing their experiences, or my best friend had shared with me a book that really spoke to her from the Buddhist monk Pema Chodron, and it was Comfortable with Uncertainty, and it was the exact thing that I needed to read at that moment, and I didn't even know it. So it's actually then, I think, when you're comfortable or even at least open with the uncertainty that's around you, you do invite conversation, and it does help you to get through, and who knows, and that's actually something I've spoken about before in presentations, is about the word serendipity. So when you start to open yourself up for this and you start to openly discuss it, then it's amazing how serendipity will take a hold, will guide you towards the next path that you didn't even know was coming up, and it's fun. As long as you're open to it and you're ready for it, it will present itself, and you just have to decide if that's the path you're going to take.
Absolutely, and had a really interesting conversation. It was actually with a guest who was on Insight TV previously. And she was saying how our natural state is change.
Yeah.
Because we're continuously evolving. Our bodies are changing continuously. Change is all around us. Change is what we naturally do. And so when we actually resist change, we are putting so much energy in being into something which is not natural. And that's when the disconnect comes. But if we can just allow it to happen and just sort of ride it a little bit like you'd ride a wave and go with it, and then life becomes a lot simpler, a lot easier, and energetically, our energy is flowing with us. It's going in the forward direction rather than being blocked and being resisted.
Yeah.
I love the idea of sort of surfing through life.
Yes.
Not that I can surf or anything, but it's a nice idea.
Yeah.
So how is building up your businesses, and I know your most recent one is the Serendip.
Yes, yes, aptly named. Yes, the actual name of our holding is Serendipity Wellness.
Right. Right.
Yes, it comes from the fact that we bought the company and brands of Serendip Spa, Serendip Store, and Serendip Yoga. But more so, actually, even how that came about was completely serendipitous. And so when we went to go create our name of our holding, it just like, well, of course, this is what it's going to be called, yeah. But it wasn't a path that I knew about. It was something that came up. I mean, to tell you where I got to at that moment to create the idea of business, of the businesses, perhaps I'll just go to the step before, which was the first uncertainty environment that I was in that created, that opened up a path that I didn't even realize. And that is that about 10 years ago, my husband and I were working in Boston, and we had great jobs, and we were both about to be promoted. We were near our family, we were near my family, and it was actually a very easy life. And I was also going through my master's degree from my MBA at the time. And as these educational opportunities create, and I talk about that now since I'm head of faculty at BU in Boston, in Brussels, that sometimes this creates a milestone automatically. So that milestone was that I had this brilliant idea. And the brilliant idea was that we would leave Boston, leave everything that was comfortable, and go to Europe and work. And luckily, and I'm not quite sure if it's because I also teach negotiation, but I convinced my husband that it was a fantastic idea, that we would leave behind everything and go. And but he did. He loved the idea. So let's do it. So we used my graduation date as a milestone, and literally the day, and we put the intention out there. Literally, it was the day, if not 2 days after, we had a job opportunity present itself. And it wasn't to the original country that I was aiming for, but it was to this crazy place called Brussels, and had no idea what Brussels was about. Hadn't visited it before in my life, and we just said, okay, let's say yes, and we did it. So we closed off everything, and we got ready for our big adventure. And the great thing about this, setting the intention, and I thought, here's destiny presenting itself. This company that hired us in Brussels hired both of us, which was never our intention going forward, for the good and the bad that brings. But hey, it was a company, it was going to hire both of us. What a great way, let's do it. And they were hiring engineers. Both of us are engineers. So they're hiring engineers from all over the world. They're about to expand. This is fantastic. It's all making sense. Well, as destiny does present itself, the day that we arrived in Brussels, the company went bankrupt. So we were amongst all of our boxes in our house, in our rented house, and we had brought our cat with us. And as it turns out, our cat was the only one with legal paperwork. And there we were in Brussels, and the company had literally shut its doors. It was this blue sky research firm that had great intentions, and it just shut down the day we arrived. And we had to make this grand decision, and the grand decision was, do we open the boxes, or do we put the boxes back out onto the truck and go back to our lives before? And in making these decisions, because we are engineers, so that means we're retentive, and we try to make consciously based, but decisions that make sense. We called our companies back in the U.S. and told them of the situation, and both companies, while they regretted the fact that we were sad, they welcomed us back very, very fiercely and said, "Oh, please, please, please come back. Your desk is still here. We haven't even, brushed it off. We haven't even moved anything. It's still here. Come back," which was, such a great thing. But both of us, both my husband and I, we hung up the phone and we opened the boxes. And for us, the idea of the uncertainty of the moment we had in front of us, and while it wouldn't be what I would recommend as the great way of moving from one country to another, it certainly was the way that we got there. And destiny being what it was, I preferred the uncertainty and the potential adventure we had in front of us as to the known quantity that we had behind us. And yes, I mean, we were in a situation where we both, this is the great part of the situation, both had no jobs. We were not with paperwork because they were inside the company, locked. We were without knowledge of languages, had no idea what Brussels was, didn't know the market. We were actually in a complete state of uncertainty, didn't know what tomorrow would bring. And while I can't look back at that time and say that I enjoyed it, I do look back at that time and say, I wish I did enjoy it, or I wish I was consciously enjoying it. But sometimes that understanding or enlightenment only comes from looking behind and saying, see, it all worked out. It was great. Why didn't you enjoy that moment? Yeah. But we don't know that at the time. But it is a learning to go through. And so with that set a certain path. And it actually opened up an amazing world for us. So, while it is challenging to think about that company that, just closed its doors and all the stuff that goes around it, it's much more enlightening to think about the opportunity that presented itself to what we're doing now. And we wouldn't have had it without going through that. And that then led me personally to where I was 3 years ago of creating that conscious time of change and starting the entrepreneurial venture that I have been meaning to for a very, very long time.
Isn't that the way it happens? There's something there, it's like we get the doors are open, or there's an opportunity to present itself. And we have a choice in that moment of time what to do with that opportunity. And, it's okay, whatever we choose at that moment in time, whether it's yes, this, that, or whatever. However, if it is something that is on your path, that is part of you being you, experiencing this thing as part of you being you, the opportunity will come again. And it will keep coming until
you don't want it to.
Yeah, until you actually do something about it. And I've experienced that in my life, and I see that with the people that I work with, the conscious leaders that I work with, the people I work with in teams, the individuals that I work with. But so often there is something that is fundamental to them that is asking to be expressed. And like you say, we can't know at that moment in time that this is going to be the thing that will set a whole series in motion that will allow me to express myself authentically and my purpose.
Yeah, and no, it's true. It has to be that moment for anyone. That and you don't know that until you go through it, and you're like, is this the time for whatever it is? And only you can answer that. And whether you try it or not, if you don't, then I do feel like it's not your moment for that, whatever that is. And like you said, it'll come back again.
It'll come back again. It'll come back again. And everything will flow, everything will sort itself out in that sort of wave of change and continuous evolution when it's ready. However, it's not... there does have to be action. There has to be, like you said, you have to actually take action towards it, because you can't just say, oh, well, it'll turn up when it's ready to turn up, and I'll just sit there and wait.
No, you have to go after it. That is the I think the hard part to think about, where sometimes people hear about whether we call it serendipity or we call it looking for whatever, that you just kind of sit back and you go, okay, let's wait. wait for it to come in. And that's not how it works. You do have to go after it. It's just that what you might be thinking you're going after, it's funny what comes up along the way. And that was my time with, going to Brussels. I mean, and I was actually thinking of going to Italy. That's it. I'm only going to Italy. That's what I said. I'm only going to Italy. This is what I'm going to do. Mm. And of course, it's funny how then another path presents itself. But that path would have never presented itself if I didn't have that intention of going in a certain direction. And bringing opportunity around me, whether I say yes or no to things, it was still, it's as you mentioned in the very beginning, you're responsible for your own happiness. So if you're in a place right now where it's not working for you, it's no one else is going to create that for you. You need to go out and put that out in the world, and not be despondent when it doesn't happen within seconds or even days or months or I hate to say years, but by persevering and going after it, you'll get there.
Absolutely. It can seem like it's never going to happen. It can seem like, oh goodness, how much more of this do I have to go through before this thing manifests itself or whatever. But the trick, and I suppose particularly with business, because the business environment is so almost counterintuitive in a way, because we are encouraged or dissuaded from using these skills, these almost intuitive skills, these feelings, this trust that is actually part and parcel of being able to embrace uncertainty and being able to follow your path and your purpose and be and do what comes to you. Business is really not about that. So, I mean, that's my work is bringing consciousness into business, into the way people work, the way people create their lives, their business lives. So how is that sort of panned out with you building up your businesses over the years?
With that, I think it helps to have gone through a variety of different experiences in a lot of different environments, and some more difficult than others, and just taking from that and bringing it forward to a new business. Now, the great thing about being an entrepreneur is that you're creating the business. You are responsible for building it from wherever level, from zero or from different levels to something more. And so looking at it from a conscious leadership position is actually something that really resonates with me. It's something that I really like. But one of the things I think about is also that word happiness that you used in the very beginning. The aspect of leadership changes depending on the environment that we're in, and a good leader adapts to what is needed at that moment, and also adapts to what's needed with the individuals around. And that's a hard one to think through, because sometimes we think, okay, this is the type of leader I am, and this is the way that I'm going to do it, and this is how it's all going to work. And then you end up with people who don't really work with that, whatever it is that you think you are, or however you are. And then you start to think about, oh, it's an issue with them. And who knows, maybe it is, but it's also an issue with the leader itself and being able to be adaptable to the environment. And that word happiness, I've gone through so many emotions within business, and that's what business creates. And we hate to say that word, emotional, but it is. I mean, that's actually what happens in business. Is we in trying to find our passion, we actually get very emotional. Sometimes too emotional, and when we get too emotional, we can't actually think straight and think clearly. And that's actually something that I take forward now, which is where it's a lot easier to balance in many ways. But one thing that got me crazy as a leader in previous situations is that I would really find it difficult in trying to make everybody happy. I believed that it was as the leader, that it was my responsibility that everybody around me was happy. And when they weren't, and I always knew when they weren't, even if they pretended like they were, I always knew. I would bring it home at night. I would stay up, I couldn't sleep. because I was thinking about, oh my God, this person isn't happy. How am I going to make them happy? And really, it took a long time to really accept the fact that while it's important to create as best environments as we can, we are not responsible for everybody else's happiness. And in doing so, I was actually not realizing how unhappy I was by being affected by everybody else's unsettled feelings and so forth. And that's not fair to anyone at that point. No one's helping anyone at that point. So with that learning behind me, it's been quite fun being part of driving new energy and new creation, which is the best part of being an entrepreneur, I think. Being an entrepreneur comes with a whole lot of other stuff, like working. I thought I used to work a lot before. Nothing compared to right now. I thought I was a busy person before. Now, not even close. That said, everything that I do, I love, and I work with people that I love, and that's a gift that happens to be in my life at this moment, and I am thankful for that. But I also know that I had a part in creating it, and I could have created that before. It doesn't even mean being an entrepreneur before, but creating that happiness around me for me, but it's the right time, the right place, and so forth. And so in my business now, what I do is I drive different energies in different ways, because having 3 or 4 different companies, depending on how you count it right now, I need to be different for different people, and I take different pleasure from being in different environments as well. So that's quite fun for me, and it is about, as you said, creating change, but doing it in a way that creates the right energy for everyone. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's so true, and the energy is something that most of the time, actually, our own personal energy, we're not aware of it. I spent most of my life not knowing that I had a purpose, and not knowing that I was energetically creating the stuff that was happening in my life. I was experiencing it, but I was experiencing it from a space of unawareness rather than awareness. And I think many, many, many people are in that space.
Yes.
And at a certain time, it was right for me to actually understand and have an awareness of that situation, and then choose to become more aware or not, or stay where I was.
I call it sleeping, actually. We go through different times of our life where we're sleeping, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, hibernation is part of what we do, whether we're sleeping at night or hibernating in many different ways. We can be doing that in our personal life and our business life. But that time is also, while we're not consciously in that moment, it is a time of resting, and that is also needed as much as it is to be aware and creating the change that we need. So that sleeping time actually gives us that experience of knowing the difference between the two. And
so true. And
again, we're not presently in that moment where we say, okay, I'm sleeping right now. No, it doesn't come as easily as that. Yes. You look back on your life and you go, God, geez, where'd those years go? I just went by, and it's not that you don't succeed or you don't do great things and all that kind of stuff, but there is a difference between a sleeping and a waking moment.
Absolutely so, and I equate it also to be sort of running on default.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
You've got the factory settings.
Yes, keep on going. You're going.
It works. And you're on default, and it's fine. And it's so true. There are certain times when actually, I've had certain times in my life when things have been changing so much that I had to keep at least one part of my life that was default.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because otherwise, it would just be too much. It would be too chaotic.
I think it's important to have something at least that's your solid base that you can come back to. And that's different things for different people. Sometimes it can just be a hobby, but something that's out there that it's like, okay, this is home, this is comfort, and this can help me get to wherever I'm going next.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really important. I suppose the key is to to be able to awaken and maintain a sort of harmony with all the different areas of your life. You know, and I've shared this before, but it's the idea of the orchestra. You know, having the different sections in the orchestra all playing different things, all playing different notes, different rhythms sometimes, you know, with different instruments, but blended together, they make a harmonious whole.
Mm.
You know, and sometimes, you know, one element will be more important than the other. Will take center stage, and something will go into the background. So it's about being able to actually embrace that and enjoy it, like you said, enjoy it, because it's uncertain. You don't know when the string section is going to come back in. You know,
Yeah,
who knows?
For me, it's, I mean, there are a lot of, especially being in Brussels, of course, we're surrounded by a lot of expatriates, people who are moving from here to there. And so that's a group that's, you know, they deal with change all the time. Sometimes in better ways than others, but it's there. And so we're quite used to that when we talk about people who love to travel. So I'm surrounded by people who love to travel, you know, and I have the same interest. But it's similar to that, you know, going on that adventure where you're not sure of what that's going to be. That's the whole purpose of going, is that it's something new and different. And that can be literally a trip that you aim for, or it can be a journey, part of your life journey, whether it's personal or work. But that adventure that we do seek, and sometimes depending on who we are, we may seek a small adventure or a big adventure. But there is that need of something that sparks something new, or that we learn something new, and that actually will keep us going. And that, I think, is something to recognize, is how much do you need? How much do you need right now? How much will create the chaos that won't settle you correct, you know, to make, you know, that you need, but how much do you need just to create that adventure of who knows, you know, what's the new learning I'm going to have today, and going forward with it.
That's so true. And, you know, it's so important. I read a post which actually I shared on social media, and it was actually about a nurse in Australia who was a palliative nurse, and she had done sort of research and collected information and thoughts from patients of hers who were dying, and basically sort of the top 5 regrets, you know, she identified from these patients. And, you know, the number one was that they hadn't done what they wanted to do.
Right.
Hadn't lived their life, they'd lived somebody else's life.
Right.
That they should have followed their passion and their purpose, basically.
Yeah.
And so this is something that people find it difficult to do, and something that can be a regret, you know. So how can we make it easier? Can we make it easier for people to really connect with that path, with that purpose, with that passion, with that uncertainty? Because that's what it is. It's everything we've been talking about, you know. It's not there written down for you to say, okay, you know, it's not painting by numbers.
Here's the 10 steps on dealing, right?
You know, and I feel that a lot of it is about awareness, is about enabling people to understand that it's okay. You know, that there's support there, that this is all part of it, and if it doesn't seem to be going right at the moment, that's okay. Well, there'll be something that is a learning there. There'll be something that is useful and helpful on the path. Have you experienced it like that?
Well, I think for me, one of the first things that can be helpful is to know that it's not supposed to be easy, and that's the fun of it. You know, the greatest things in life are challenges. They're not supposed to be easy. You know, and yes, I know that makes things difficult and all that kind of stuff. But that's the point. You know, we're here to drive ourselves and to find our passion, and that's not going to be easily presented to us. If it was, we would question whether we were happy and whether we need to get there.
Yeah.
You know, it is about the journey it takes to get somewhere, and that's as important as the actual getting there.
Absolutely.
And that can be the fun part as well. And the whole idea of embracing uncertainty, embracing what is the unknown, is just accepting that, accepting that it isn't easy, and that there will be something that is the next step, and it's determining what that something is. I don't know that there is something easy to pass along to someone who's going through it. And of course there are a lot of, like I said, the great book that my best friend had presented to me at that moment. That was fantastic. I do think, though, talking about it helps. And I'm not a big, I'm more, in my professional life, I'm an extrovert, but in my real life, I am an introvert, and I don't go around talking about things to people. But in this particular case, when I've gone through it before, that's what made it even more fun, because I found that actually other people were going through something very similar. And in fact, actually, in this, right before I created all the companies, deciding, that I really needed to leave the last company, and turning down some great opportunities in front of me because I felt like I was just repeating my life, and I wasn't learning something, putting myself in an opportunity to learn something new. But, the not having something, the next step was, as someone who's very professionally driven, that's a very scary moment. But I decided that this is going to be fun. So one of the things that I did is I actually created a party. I actually had an uncertainty party. Rented a bar. We danced until 3 a.m. And as doing that, I actually found that there were a lot of people around me who were actually going through something very similar, and I didn't even know that. So by having this crazy, conversation with people, inviting them to an uncertainty party, there was either two things. People either thought I was crazy, which I don't care, or, they're like, fantastic, I'll be there, and we'll, drink and dance and talk all night.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't mean that the next day began with certainty. Like, okay, now that that's taken care of, now we'll just know where I'm going. It isn't. That's the beginning of a journey, going forward. But I think one important thing is to celebrate the moments that we have in life and to appreciate what we have around us. And it does go back to that article that you've read about what people say when they're at the end of their life. And for those of us, and I'm one of them, to be around people who are grappling with that all the time, of being of that challenge of their life and the health and everything around them. Sometimes it is perhaps a little easier to put things into perspective and to go after your passion and your dreams. Because many of us have realized that life is short, and it's said a lot, but until you are actually presented with that reality, either personally or around you, you don't, I know I haven't in the past, actually got it. When you get it, you get it. And then you realize, I am only here for a particular period of time. I am here, I'm meant to do something, and one of them is to create my own happiness. And I do, and depending on what happy means to you. And again, for me, happiness is about creating uncertainty sometimes, and that's fun. The adventure is fantastic.
I think it's really important what you just said, that happiness is, the definition of happiness is a personal definition.
Yes.
What one person wants to be happy is not the same as the next person, and so it is about identifying, and sometimes it's as simple as that. Just actually identifying what it is that makes you happy.
Right.
And, it sounds easy, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Theory, it does, sure. And you kind of question when you are having that moment of happiness, which is a gift. To celebrate it when But when someone around you is unhappy, you think, God, how is that possible? Life is great. You have everything around you.
But so often also, you can say, yes, I'm happy. Hang on a second, whose happiness am I living here? Am I happy because I'm making somebody else happy? You know, am I happy because I'm approved of? Or, you know, I've made the right decisions in life, that sort of the right decisions. And I think so often our happiness is a bit of a false friend, or it can be, you know. And when you ask those other questions, those real questions about your own personal happiness, what is it that actually makes your heart sing?
Right.
You come up with a different answer.
Yes.
You know, and so often that's the scary bit. That's the scary bit, because, you know, that's perhaps an answer that has been kept down and hasn't been expressed freely. And all of a sudden you're faced with the choice, okay, what do I do now?
Right.
You know, I've uncovered this. I realized, you know, there's something here that I haven't done yet, and that's what it actually is fundamental to me. Now I've got to do something about it.
Right.
You know, so
that's the tough part. Yeah. I mean, one exercise that I'm not necessarily saying it's a good exercise to do, because it may, who knows where you might go in this direction, but if all of the barriers in your life were put aside for the moment, and you could literally put down on a piece of paper, think through what you would do with your day and your life in general, if you didn't have to worry about the responsibilities that you yourself have placed around you. It's, you know, the list that you would create may be extremely, extremely different than the reality that you're in. And then it's a question of that soul searching of, all right, well, I did put that on paper. Is that really, truly what I would do? You know? And yes, it's tough to get up every day and have to work and so forth, but that is part of our life, and we should enjoy it. So it doesn't mean that everybody, you know, should stop working and not do anything. For me, I get a lot of energy from working, obviously, or I wouldn't do it as many hours a day and days of the week that I do it. But, you know, I always say that if I, you know, didn't have the need of things, if I didn't need to pay the rent, if I didn't need to do all these things, I would still do what I do.
Yeah.
I might do more other things as well that I could put into my time, but that's more of a limitation of how many hours in the day. And that's, you know, an interesting exercise that perhaps would help with someone soul searching. And that's what uncertainty is about, is that moment of being on a quest, you know, looking for or answering a question that we have in one's life. And a lot of times it comes from our job, because that is what we spend a lot of time doing. And sometimes it's a question of, you know, what can I do to find more fulfillment where I am? Or am I on, do I need to go on another journey somewhere else? And how do I get there that works for me and works for everyone that depends on me, and everything like that.
And you know what? So often that journey is inwards.
Yes.
It's going in, you know, it's going into what's really important, because, you know, my experience and my belief is that when you're fulfilled personally, when you have that happiness, when you are serving your highest needs, then everybody around you is also served.
Yeah. And
by restricting that, by saying, no, I can't do this, or I shouldn't do that, it's not right, that's me wanting too much, or whatever, is not helping anybody.
Right.
Anyway, you know, there may be very, very, you know, tangible limitations at a point in time that will stop you from making certain decisions, making certain changes. But, you know, it takes a lifetime to live a life.
Yes.
Right? And so it can take time, and as we both know, you know, opportunities will come, and then they'll disappear, and they'll come again.
And like we said before, sometimes it may not be the right time to take a certain path. You know, there may be things that we do, other things we need to think about at that moment.
Yeah.
But I believe if it's truly meant to be, will create that opportunity. That opportunity will come before us again, as you say.
Absolutely.
And then it may be the time just to try it out, see what will happen.
I love that. I love that. You know, and there's I liked your how you were putting it. You know, about really asking the questions, and you know, if everything is ideal, you know, if money were no issue and all the rest, I have a similar one with clients that I work with, and it's called the rocking chair test. And it's, it's basically, you're sitting on your porch in your rocking chair at the end of an amazing life, and you're looking back on the most wonderful life ever. And you just, the clients I work with have a great time with this, because they just imagine everything, because everything's possible. You've lived it already.
Right.
You're 99 and you're sitting on your porch and it's all happened.
Right.
So, and it's just really, really inspiring. And there are so many little nuggets in there, that we don't ask ourselves this stuff. We rarely ask ourselves, what would my ideal life be? What do I really want to be doing? What do I want to be looking at every single day?
What I always say with questions, regardless if you're being asked a question or you're asking a question, don't ask the question until you're ready to hear the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason why we don't ask the question about, what if, I didn't have to, make money, what if I didn't have to do this, what if, is what would we do with the answer? And it can seem like by asking the question, I would, have the potential of feeling more depressed or unhappy, because I would realize that that's not where I am or who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be ready for the moment of saying, you know what, I'm going to hear the answer and I'm going to be okay with it. And I then have a decision in front of me.
Exactly.
I can work towards that, or I can reflect further and see if that's truly what I want to do, or am I just, saying out in the air, yes, I would like to do this, but is that really a reality? Is that what I truly want to do? Will that fulfill me? Will that fulfill the needs that I have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something I'm really passionate about, and I know you are too. And it's really, really interesting. It's emotional, as you've said. It's enlightening. It's inspiring, and it's joyful to actually ask these questions when you're ready. You're in that space, and I think really it's whatever the answer. That's okay. Whatever you choose with the answer, when you can be okay with whatever the answer is,
yes,
then that's happiness.
True.
I can't believe it. We've been going for about 48 minutes. My goodness, time just flies. When
it's a fun topic. So.
it's amazing. But I want to give you the opportunity, Melissa, just to share something, what you're doing. If you have any news, any information you'd like to get out there.
Yeah, well, there's with the different things going on, there's so much that I could tell you. But probably because it's first and foremost on my mind from today and the things I've been doing the last couple days. But we're very much enjoying the path that we're taking with the Serendipity Wellness Company and with Serendip Spa. And we're really excited because we're just about to launch our Serendip Yoga activities. And it's in a location around the corner from our spa with workshops and different well-being opportunities based on things that are for the mind, body, and spirit. So we're quite looking forward to the fun that we'll have. Because also then pushing the envelope of the things that are the very serious aspect of our daily life, but then going a little bit beyond and looking towards the more spiritual aspect that will then open up the great and strange conversations and connections that we'll have. So we like to say that, who knows where serendipity might take us next, and whoever becomes part of our fold as we go forward. But we're looking forward to the next stage. We're having a yoga launch on June 4th, and of course everybody's invited. And we're looking forward to meeting many new people and starting our yoga journey with our Serendip community. And so that's the first thing on my mind. So
wonderful.
Thank you for allowing me to share.
For people who are Brussels-based, Belgium-based, so all you guys out there.
We're just flying through. That's okay too.
And the US, and you're going to have to come to Brussels at some stage, and you're going to have to stop by Serendip Spa and find out what it's all about and connect with the amazing energy there. So
Yeah.
Perhaps a website or a way that people can connect with
Yes,
you.
serendipspa.com, so quite
Mhm.
easy. And you can find us, of course, all over social media. So yes, we look forward to meeting new people and getting to know the people that we've already begun to know. So
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, I really want to thank you for such an inspiring, interesting conversation around uncertainty.
well, thank you for the opportunity, Helen. It's been
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I know that we'll be doing things together again in the future. So watch this space, everybody. There'll be more news on that to come. Had a great conversation tonight. Hope you've enjoyed it. It's really been a pleasure to share with you all out there. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Melissa once again. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you.
Look forward to everything that is on our path. And the next TV show, so the next Insight TV will be on Tuesday, the 4th of June. I'll be joined by Chris Black, and I'm just gonna leave it like that. Chris Black is based in the UK, and he's a master at what he does. I'm going to be intriguing. So go on to the TV site, so that's helenkerrisontv.com, to find out more about future broadcasts. That's where to go also for the recording if you don't manage to see this live. And connect with me on my site, helenkerrison.com, by email. You can get all my details there. Tell us what you think. Share with our questions. Love to hear them. Really like to get your feedback and your input. So that's it. Have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day wherever you are. And thank you once again to Melissa. And look forward to seeing you all again on Insight TV in 2 weeks' time. Take care and see you again soon. Bye-bye.